As the bathysphere would pull into Hephaestus, Bucky looked over the now mangled contraption that he now called a left arm. His original mechanical arm being nearly destroyed in his battle at Fort Frolic against Sander Cohen and the various hordes of splicers and the Big Daddy that ultimately turned against him. He had no choice but to take off the drill from the Big Daddy's arm, fusing it with what remained of his own, using the incinerate plasmid as a way to weld and cauterize the arm. It would serve as a form of melee, while he used his right hand for blasting and shooting. Little Masha looking to him, tending to his wounds, the little needle that she had carried along with her that was able to inject and pull out Adam. She had used the last of it and gave it to him to try to help ease the pain that he was feeling, given the excruciating battle he had been under. Of course, they were getting close to the final crescendo, if you will. What remained of Ryan and his forces, they were all hidden behind Hephaestus. Now, this part of Rapture was much different than any other, since it was close to an undersea volcano. This volcano was used as a way of getting heat into Rapture, a way of adding and giving them a self-sustaining form of energy. Of course, there were those who were still loyal to Ryan and worked under him. They were splicers all the same. And Andrew Ryan had worked tirelessly in order to get them to his side, creating a special pheromone that would allow him to control the splicers at will. Hephaestus was sort of the iron fortress of Rapture, just before you went into the Grand Hall itself, the Hall of Andrew Ryan. Now, it wasn't uncommon during the War of Rapture that people made attempts to try to get to the big boss himself. However, that was a lot easier said than done. Hephaestus was, in a way, an impenetrable location. And even if you managed to make it that far, you never quite reached the head honcho himself, Andrew Ryan. He had plenty of men who were loyal to him, but there were those who were also disloyal. And as such, Ryan made an example out of them. Yes, the tide of the battles had turned, especially for Atlas. In fact, you could say that prior to a few days ago, he and his men were on their last legs. They had mounted various attempts to try to get to Olympus Heights, to try to get to Hephaestus, to drag out Ryan and stop him once and for all. But they could never get close enough. Between the security bots that were armed and controlled by Armin Zola, between dealing with Dr. Lamb and her cultists from Persephone, who were also looking to make their move on Rapture as well, it just never gave them the right opportunity. Until now. Andrew Ryan, an inanimate man, he looked out of his office, looking at Hephaestus down below. So far, he had learned much about this man who was coming to take his life. Zola had been very forthcoming with all the information that he needed. I must say, Mr. Zola, I am disappointed in you. That you didn't feel the need to inform me of such a problem. Did you think it would not reach me? It is not like that, Mr. Ryan. I assure you. I would try to torture you, but you're nothing more but buckets of bolts and wires. Once a man reduced to nothing more but a machine. You are a slave to me, Zola. And I do not take kindly to using that term. I detest the slave. I hate them in every which way and regard. But you, I make the exception. Do you know why? I make the exception because you, Zola, are a weak man. You had so much talent, so much potential, and yet you allowed the Red Skull, you allowed Hydra, you allowed the United States, you allowed them all to push you around. When I brought you here to Rapture, I thought that I was giving you a chance to have a second start, a chance for you to right your wrongs, and what did you do? You conspired, you and your Hydra agents. You even went as far as to try to conspire with the likes of that Fontaine. And look at how well it worked out for you. In the end, you are all that remains. You and that dreaded woman, Tenenbaum. But I will deal with her in time, just as I have dealt with all of my enemies. Everyone that's ever tried to come after me, they don't get many opportunities. Where I come from, there's a saying. When you aim for the king, you should not miss. Not only have you missed horribly, Zola, but look at what you've been reduced to. Your consciousness put into a machine that I control with just the push of a button. You are a shell of a man. You are no longer a man at all. Look at how far you have fallen. And yet even still, sometimes I wonder if I see any resistance in you. If I see any vestige of the famed scientists of Hydra. And yet I see nothing. Zola, a man chooses and a slave obeys. And you are the most obedient of slaves. Something I appreciate, and yet something that I also despise. The assassin has managed to escape from Fort Frolic. In all likelihood, it means he has killed Mr. Cohen. Another pillar of Rapture, sunken down to the depths below. But that will all be taken care of soon enough. Thankfully, it seems that in Fontaine's folly, he made one crucial mistake, imploring this sleeper agent of yours. And for that, it will cost him dearly. I will rebuild Rapture. I will rebuild it, and it will claim its once lost glory. They look and believe that the best days of Rapture are behind them, but no, it is just beginning. For even in the midst of chaos, I have been given a second chance. You will provide me the time that I need before the assassin arrives. Is that understood, Mr. Zola? Yes, Mr. Ryan. It is understood. Very well. See to it so. As the bathysphere would pull into Hephaestus, Bucky would make his way out with little Masha close behind him. Things were only going to get worser from here. As the radio would blare, he would pick it up once more, hearing the voice of that woman. You will have to make your way to Hephaestus. That is the only way to get to the head office of Mr. Ryan. We believe he is going to be locked away behind the main gate and door. You're going to have to build an EMP bomb. It's the only way to disable all of the tech that has been used to lock away the headmaster of Rapture. Zola is the head security. In all likelihood, he is going to send everything after you. The little one who has been following you up until this point, you are going to have to send her to me. It won't be safe for her, not where you are going. Bucky looked down towards little Masha. Masha still did not want to leave him. However, he took a knee as he placed his one good hand on her shoulder. Listen to me, Masha. Where I'm about to go, you can't follow me. Masha doesn't want to leave. Your friend. Daddy won't leave behind. No, it'll be all right. You can trust her. She's been looking after all of your sisters. You need to go where they are and stay safe until it's over. There are a lot of bad people in here. A lot of people who are going to harm you. And for better or for worse, in the state I'm in right now, I won't be much help trying to keep you safe and get where I need to go. Bucky would point to the hole in the wall. That'll take you somewhere safe, won't it? But It'll be okay. I promise. I'll come find you when it's over. Masha looked to him once again. She didn't like the idea of leaving him behind, the person who had been guarding and protecting her. But still, even she recognized that this place, it was far too dangerous. And she had been picking up on the fact that it was because of her that her new daddy had gotten hurt. Because he was trying to protect her, he caused him to take unnecessary risk. He couldn't fight at his full strength. With a somber heart, she walked to the great hole in the wall, where all the little sisters used to traverse through Rapture, unable to be followed. Bucky would give her a nod to keep going. She waved one final time before crawling through and leaving him. Now being left free to his own devices, he clutched at the pistol to his side as he carried the Tommy gun and the shotgun on his back as he started to make his way through Hephaestus. The security cameras were targeting in on him closely, though they'd never get but a few moments. A quick shot of Electrobolt and a few placed bullets were enough to destroy them. The torrent bots had no idea where to go or where he could be. Every time they tried to find him, the man disappeared like a ghost. But that was all par for the course. That was his training. That is what he was made to do. To get in and out. To disappear without a trace. Zola was putting everything he had into trying to find the assassin and kill him once and for all. Their strongest splicers were being sent to his location. Andrew Ryan's voice could be heard through the speakers of Hephaestus, speaking out over, taunting Bucky. I have come to learn a lot about you, Mr. Bonds. I don't know everything yet, but it's safe to say that you are but a challenge to me. You are the antithesis of Rapture, of everything it stands for. A soldier, a slave to the United States, a slave to Rapture, and now a slave to Tenenbaum. That is what you are. You are but a poor child from the slums, the would-be sidekick to that would-be hero Captain America. You fell into the snow and you were forgotten, a mere tool and afterthought, pulled away and transformed into a slave. That is all you are, all you will ever be. Bucky ignored those words as he continued to fight through the halls, killing splicer after splicer, taking the hits, but yet moving relentlessly and efficiently, all of his focus only on killing. As he made his way through one corridor, the lights began to flicker on and off. There were bodies laid all around him. Halfway through, he stopped, the lights turning off one final time. Before we get started, do any of you want to leave? When the lights came on, all the bodies that had been laying on the ground, believed to be dead, sprung to life, those beginning to take their shots right at Bucky. Bucky would block with the infused drill arm, while using his other one to use the frost plasmid. Freezing one enemy in place, he took back the drill hand and smashed it directly through the face of one of the splicers. There were 2 shots that were fired directly in his back, although he quickly switched to using a pistol to fire at the enemy, who disappeared with the teleport plasmid, before appearing above him to throw a few balls of incinerate. Bucky would counter with the frost plasmid, freezing the fireballs in midair before using telekinesis to launch them at another enemy that was coming right at his direction. A few more would use teleport while others were staying back in the distance, firing off with their Tommy guns. Bucky would hide behind a few crates before creating a diversion with a proximity grenade, throwing it and using telekinesis to angle it at the right position to take out the 2 shooters. As he battled through the hall of splicers, he would continue to kill and take them out one by one, sinking deeper and deeper into Hephaestus. He would eventually find a trap door. There, the former head chief of Hephaestus, who had turned traitor against Ryan, had revealed he had been building the EMP bomb. It would disconnect Zola's usage of the security drones, as well as disconnecting Ryan's full-on automatic security door locks. It would basically reroute and destroy all of the main functions of Hephaestus, making every door easily accessible. Of course, it was incomplete, which meant that Bucky had the grueling task of going back and forth all throughout Hephaestus, gathering the parts and pieces needed to get the bomb to be fully operational. There were lumbering big daddies, though, moving about all through Hephaestus, all of which had been personally placed under the control of Ryan. There were 2 that tried to attack him simultaneously, and the hypnotizing plasmid wasn't going to work this time around. While the big daddies were strong and ferocious, not easily being able to be beaten and taken down at all, he knew the weak spots and knew where to attack. A few well-placed shots of frost plasmid, as well as electrobolt, and using armor-piercing rounds, they were enough to put down the 2 big daddies once and for all, although Bucky had taken some hits all along the way. As he continued to fight, he could hear Ryan's voice speaking throughout all of Hephaestus, continuing to taunt and jeer at him, telling him that his efforts were futile, that all of it was pointless, meaningless, that he wouldn't stand a chance. However, he wasn't the only one making his way to Hephaestus. No, help was coming in the most unlikeliest of ways. A few days prior, with the help of Atlas and the few supplies they had, Howard was able to take the suit of a Big Daddy, modifying it with some of the modern technologies of Rapture. He created something that he had the early blueprints for. It was a schematic for an armored suit, although he would never have gotten it to be fully functional given the modern technologies that they had. He had always believed that it was the sort of technology that wouldn't come around into his son's generation. But under Rapture, it seemed like you could make the impossible possible. It was originally called the Hydra Stomp armor, but since Hydra for the most part was gone, it needed a new name. He called it the Bio Armor. Along with Atlas, who had also made a specially made armor for himself, something that took a little bit of inspiration from the likes of the Captain America and Peggy being well armed with weapons, fully stocked for what they had. Atlas's group was also making the charge to Hephaestus, although from the opposite end. Atlas would lead the charge with shield in hand, blocking and guarding with Peggy shooting from behind, while Howard, in his newly made armor, crudely thrown together at the last moment, was using whatever sort of torrent and weapons he had attached to them, they began to fire off and make their way through Hephaestus as well, believing that with enough force and power, they could just break down the barrier doors to Ryan's office and destroy all control to Rapture once and for all. This also meant that Zola had his attention split. He had to deal with the assassin, the Winter Soldier, as well as dealing with Atlas and his crew, although many of them were dying along the way. It was starting to become too much. There were only but so many torrent bots, security drones, that could be deployed before they were all simply destroyed. But Zola was well aware of this. You might be wondering, what exactly happened to Armin Zola? What was his story in Rapture? As you know, Ryan had him taken from his holding cell inside of a secret government facility in the United States. Now, unlike in the original timeline, where Zola would have been commissioned to work for the US government, Ryan believed that his attentions could best be suited elsewhere. Zola, shortly after the Great War, World War II, was brought to an end, with the Allies gaining victory, he was taken off, his death faked, and he was brought to the city of Rapture. There he served with the head of security. He helped design the bots and the drones that flew all throughout Rapture, the specially made torrent guns that needed DNA clearance in order to avoid firing on non-combative targets. However, Zola did not come there just to escape his potential fate at the hands of the US government. For you see, Zola was not the only scientist of Hydra to be brought to Rapture. There were a few others, those who managed to survive. At first, they all congregated together once again. You could say it was like a meeting of old friends from a lifetime ago. But the reason why they all came together was for a simple cause. They believed that Rapture could be the opportunity that Hydra needed to bring back their forces. Sure, they could have just hid on the surface, but who knew how long that would take? Who knew how long they'd have to wait before they could infiltrate world governments? With Rapture, they could hide in plain sight, grow their forces, grow their technologies unchallenged. They believed that when the time was right, they could easily dispose of Andrew Ryan, dispose of any competition, and in effect, they could use Rapture as a way to regrow a whole civilization dedicated to Hydra and its cause, with enough power and force to take back the world that they had lost. However, Ryan was just a bit more cautious than that. There were cameras everywhere. Cameras that even the great Zola didn't know about. So, when Ryan found out about Zola's dealings with Fontaine, he kept it to himself. He waited for the right moment to strike. When Fontaine was taken down, most of the Hydra scientists that were brought were executed. All of them swept under the rug, all except for two: Tenenbaum and Zola. Tenenbaum was useful for her research with Adam and with the Little Sisters. Along with that, there was Zola, whose intellect was still useful to him, although it came at a great cost. Shortly after, the Civil War would break out within Rapture, and Zola would nearly lose his life, but he would be restored once again, although now he was reduced to being nothing more but a computer, a mere machine. He looked like he was in the shape of a man, but he was not. You could say Zola had become nothing more but a robot, nothing but metal, wires, circuit boards, a little screen in the center of the robot's chest that projected a green face in memory of Zola. This was what he had been reduced to, a puppet used by Andrew Ryan, a way of being his eyes and ears all throughout Rapture. Andrew Ryan had Zola's life in the palm of his hands. With one push of a button, Zola could be shut down for good, and he had no way of fighting back. In essence, he had truly been reduced to nothing more but a slave. He watched as Rapture continued to fall into decay and disarray, the Civil War taking its toll on the city. Zola was easily able to figure out that the only person who could have operated the sleeper super soldier had to have been Tenenbaum, in all likelihood as a way of enacting whatever grand plans that she had. Bucky would continue to make his way through Hephaestus. With bomb in hand, he would eventually set it off. For Zola, he had lost all control of the security drones. All of the automatic doors, they were now going to be unlocked. Anyone could use them. The enemies were closing in. For Zola, his time was shortly up. In all likelihood, whatever Ryan had planned, it was going to happen soon. But maybe that would keep him distracted. Distracted just long enough. It wouldn't give him much time, but still. Zola had a few tricks up his sleeve. He had been a slave. He had been a pushover. But it was time to bring all of that to an end. Within one of the corridors, as Atlas, Peggy, and Howard were the last three left standing, they saw one of the security screens. They saw the face of Zola himself. At first, they all stood on guard, not sure what was about to happen, but Zola would assure them that he was not their enemy. Instead, he gave them directions directly to a secret passageway that would lead them directly to the office of Andrew Ryan. Of course, Atlas was skeptical. Why would a stooge of Ryan want to help them out now? What game was he trying to pull? He would simply tell them that Rapture was dying. And he contributed to the death of the city. But, and make no qualms about this, he hated all of them. Every single one. He hated Miss Carter. He hated Stark. He hated Atlas. That hatred never died. Even when his flesh and blood did. Even when he was reduced to being nothing more but a machine. That hatred still remained. It was ironic. It was almost impossible. It was hard to fathom the idea that a machine could hate. And yet, he was the living proof. But no, there was one person he hated more than anything. Andrew Ryan. Ryan always walking around acting like he was the smartest thing ever to walk the earth. Little did he know. I do not have much time before he shuts me down. But if this is the last thing I can contribute to, my only opportunity, I am going to take it. And is that so? Atlas yelled out. And what exactly do you want in return, you bucket of bolts? Find Andrew Ryan and kill the son of a bitch. I'd be more than happy to oblige. In the meantime, Bucky had managed to reach the final door. Just behind it would be the office of Andrew Ryan. His mission, his target. Destroy him, destroy Rapture, all of it would be brought to an end. As the door opened, Bucky slowly made his way through the dark, dimly lit halls of the office. Just outside, there were metal pikes with bodies hanging on either side. The bodies of those who tried to stand against him. Among them, a man named Bill McDonough. A man who considered Ryan to be like a father. Who loved Andrew Ryan but loved Rapture just as much. He tried to assassinate him, but sadly he did not have the heart for it. Ryan did not take pleasure in Bill's death. In fact, out of everyone that was killed, his was the swiftest. Eventually, he reached a glass door, and on the other side was Andrew Ryan. Ryan looked like he was playing a game of golf. He hardly acknowledged Bucky's presence, but he knew he was there. So, the assassin has overcome all of my obstacles, and now you have come to kill me. I've learned a lot about you, and you've been doing a fine job causing all of this chaos in my city. You think you're clever, don't you? But truthfully, you know absolutely nothing. You don't even know who you are. Do you, Mr. Bonds? Or is that also lost to you? A man with no free will. A slave. You know, they've tried to take everything from me. But even while I don't believe in God, I do believe in something even greater. I called it the Great Chain. The Great Chain of Industry. I tried to pull that chain in the right direction, and there were those who tried to pull back. They yanked and pulled by any means necessary. They even tried to hurt me with my own family. You've met them on that plane that crashed. I know the instructions that you were given. You targeted one person specifically, a man about the same age as you. You believed that you had killed him, but you made one critical error. You brought the prodigal son back home, back into the loving hands of his father. Bucky immediately felt something kick him in the back. As he stood ready to fight, he saw him. The man from the plane. The man he was supposed to kill. It was... Allow me to introduce to you my son, Jack Ryan. You killed him on that plane that crashed over Rapture. And he was dead. But surprisingly enough, as his ship sunk closer and closer to the city, it activated one of the Vita chambers. And because he shares my DNA, he was able to return back to life. This was the work of that bastard Fontaine when he stole my son away from me, tried to brainwash him to kill his own father. But little did he know that his plans would only end up contributing to my victory. I have my perfect successor. And I didn't even have to raise him. If he were still alive, I'd at least compliment him on a job well done. He has created for me the perfect son, the perfect soldier. I will restore him to his faculties soon enough, but for now, I will take advantage of this golden opportunity. Now, my son, would you kindly kill the Winter Soldier? This concludes BioShock Secret Empire. What if the Winter Soldier was in BioShock? Part 5. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned next Monday as we'll be continuing in the afternoon with this series of BioShock Secret Empire. What if the Winter Soldier was in BioShock? Part 6. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.